Jeff. Hello, my name is Catriona Dooley of Monias Beads. I'm a beadwork artist. I'm Anishininew, an Irish band member of St. Joseph's Point First Nation in the Island-like region of Treaty 5 in Manitoba. And I'm based here in Winnipeg in Treaty 1 territory. And alongside me is...
Hi, I'm Neve Dooley. I'm also a beadwork artist as well as other mediums, and we are sisters, so we're both Anishininew and Irish.
And so today, as you may have seen from the CBC Manitoba page on Facebook and Instagram, it's the Begin Anywhere series to make a beaded feather pendant or modify to a diamond, as we did provide the templates online. So if some of you may have seen, they're going to look like this. And I have them prepared today to be printed out and cut out the preferred design. So I have a feather one here, and Neve will be doing...
I'll be doing a diamond shape that's on the template.
Okay. And included online, we also had a instruction sheet as well. It's about 7 pages, but some of the instructions are pretty... there's 39 steps, but some of them are not too long, so they're easy to follow along, and they begin with noting the materials to have, which are in front of us here. And yeah, so this is just some of the beadwork we've done before, and some of one of the first pieces I had done, because we do have to start somewhere. And so the finished pieces will look like these 4, if you follow the instructions exactly. These are modified designs up here. So, like I was saying earlier in different things with on CBC radio and online, that you can bring yourself to the piece. So the design is pretty open. It's not like there's no assigned colors or certain things you can use besides just bringing size 10 beads and all the other supplies that you may need. So so I hope everyone has all their materials. So yeah, you have your template, some stabilizer, fabric stabilizer, so it's kind of thick, kind of like felt. Or you could use felt, but it might be a bit flimsy, and some people put, paper bags on top. I know my mom used to do that. Or you can use melton wool as well too. It's a bit thick though. So if you have that as well, because they will be going together, and then have your size 10 beads. Have different colors assortments, and sometimes beads will come on these called hanks. And I mean, these are cut glass, but seed beads also come on these too sometimes. And yeah, so you can empty them out into a container, so it's easier for you to have them in one spot so they don't spill and go everywhere. And you also have your nylon thread. So I have mine, Neve has hers. Beading needle size 10, because this will fit generally like the standard like nylon thread if you go to a beading store or craft supply store. Because the higher the number of the needle, the harder it will be to get the thread through. So I do have some size 12 needles, but the thread I'm using actually won't fit through the pinhole. And you could use sewing needles if you want as well too, but they may be a bit more difficult. So they may be a bit more difficult to get a bead on them because they are thicker, and you don't want to crack beads because that can actually happen.
Okay. And we have 2 different kind of needles that we're using. So I'm using a short needle, and then Catriona will be using a longer needle. I think personally the short needles are better for beginners to be using, just because the longer needles they tend to bend a bit more. Yeah.
And yeah, so if you have that and scissors, the pliers you'll need later, either when you're edging or when you're using the jump ring these are jump rings here to attach in the end. So that's what's on these here too. So there's a jump ring here. So this one's ready to go onto a pendant, and by the end, hopefully, you will have something to wear or gift or put on a key ring. Or if you make two, you can also make earrings. Just get fish hooks and also use the pliers to attach. So, yeah.
Get started?
Yeah, well, now get started. And some other just notes. Sometimes it's handy to have beeswax to condition the thread so it doesn't knot. Or you can use, you know, if you are Indigenous and you do have quill work in your family, or you do have access to porcupine quills, you could add a quill to some pieces as well too. But I'll just be doing the beads today, so, but that's just a little note for anyone that's joining us or may want to do this after. So. Okay, so yeah, the first step would be to attach your template with tacky glue. So you can do it lightly, very lightly in just certain spots, just to make sure it's mounted. Some people also staple just on the corners if you have a stapler, just so it's easier. You're just essentially making sure
it's staying on the felt.
Yeah, so it's staying there and it doesn't move. Okay, and so yeah, so that's like step one. And step two, grab the thread. I know I did say about 3 feet or a spool, but a spool is really ideal because actually you probably need about 6 feet in the end. But so if you're a beginner, it's probably easier to cut a not a piece of thread that's too long, because there is the risk of it tangling. So I would say, yeah, probably just like the width of, like just over the width of your body might be good. And then cut that. You got yours?
I'm going to use yours.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're the same ones.
Okay.
And yeah, so we have, yeah, and if anyone has any questions, comments, following along, we'll know about those as well too. So, and yeah, so once it's cut, you're going to tie a knot on the end. You ideally will have to tie it about 3-4 times in the same spot. So you just take the thread, as in the pictures, make a hole.
Yeah. And then
make a
just
hole.
pulling.
And then pull the thread through.
And then
we just had a comment from Instagram. So someone asked if it's nylon or cotton thread, which one's better. So it's actually nylon would be best, as cotton, like ones that you use for fabric and that. If like you actually pull on it, it may actually rip depending on how thick or thin it is, or it may actually start to come apart because it is, I guess not as bonded as like the nylon thread. So yeah, so it would be best to get the nylon thread. And yeah, so I'm still just in the same spot. And if you actually miss and go like just ahead, it's okay. Just keep trying to tie
the same spot. Yeah, I think I was doing that in the close-up. Okay. I managed to get it. Yeah, so I did it 3 times, the knot at the end.
I'm going to speak a little louder for Instagram. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, and so the third step, so step 3 would be to thread the needle in with the thread. So you go to the head of the needle and push. You might need to close it.
Yeah, close it.
And then you push it through. So because it's a size 10 needle and it's bonded nylon thread.
There we go. And leave a little tail as well.
Yeah, so you want to leave a little tail. Sometimes there are people that will, or artists that may find it easier if once it's like this, then they tie it off. And so you can do that, it's a personal preference, but once you do that and there's a mistake or something gets stuck, you will actually have to cut off this whole thing and redo the whole process. Or you could just pull off the needle and then just fix what you were doing. So it's a bit easier that way rather than having to cut off if like you do make mistakes. Yeah, so if you leave a little tail, about like a couple inches, 2-3 inches, so yeah. And I think we are ready to start threading. Okay, and so now you'll grab the mounted feather or the mounted diamond, and to begin you're going to want to have the knotted end here. If you have a longer tail though, you can cut it a little bit just so it doesn't get in the way, and you're going to want to take the needle and go from underneath, and the starting point for the feather is right here in the center. So you're going to want to come up from underneath. I kind of know where it's located, but if you're a beginner, it's like fine to actually just, you know, poke through until you actually get to the right spot. And Neve is...
I'm doing the diamonds, so I'll be doing the same, going from underneath and then going to, I'm going to be starting just at the points here. And what you want to do with anything with outline is to do the outline first and then do the fill-in, which is what we're going to be showing everyone. So go through, underneath, and then just kind of pull it through.
Yeah, I'll be pulling mine through too. And now you have the beginning of your beading, and I will actually use the beads. So I'm deciding to use, this is just a little, when I started earlier, but I'll be using gold, black, and cream, just because I happen to like those colors, and they go together. And Neve,
I'm doing gold, like this dusty rose color, and white. So I'm doing 3 colors.
Yeah, and with the
the thread we use is bonded nylon. So this one we have, this is just the beading thread, and then this is also, it's kind of a bit thicker in length, so it's a bit harder to thread. So this would be good on like leathers when you're sewing that together. But yeah, it's a bonded nylon.
And I mean, depending on the project, like sometimes you can use like different things, but then the type of needle will actually change too. So I mean, I've used sinew for different projects. Neve has some on her mask there, and
sinew.
I mean, you could. My mic is quiet.
Oh.
Yeah, it's this mic here. It's just project a lot for this one. It's for this mic here.
Oh, it's
okay.
Instagram.
For Instagram.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And yeah, so I mean, so like bonded nylon, try to get that. But even then, like if like you are just practicing, you could actually, and like if like you only have cotton thread, you could use that too. But I would really strongly suggest to get bonded nylon. And yeah, you can get them at different stores, beadwork, arts, crafts, indigenous suppliers, or just other places as well too. There's art supply stores too, right?
Yeah, some art supplies will might have it as well. Yeah, the only thing with the cotton thread is that you're going to be doing a pulling motion for the most part, and sometimes it can snap, and so you don't want that to happen. And it'll make it stronger as well for the overall design. Yeah.
Okay, and we just had another question. If you use one needle or two, so this is a one needle technique that we're doing today. There is a 2 needle one, and that involves having this and also a second set of needles where you lay down all the thread and then you go over each bead. This one you're actually lacing on one bead each time, just with one needle. So yeah, so there are different techniques. Yeah, but and this one I find is more beginner friendly too. So if you're just beginning and want to learn how to, you know, tack every bead down so it's not, yeah, so they all like stay in place. Like these beads here, everyone's been tacked down, like every piece. This is the older piece. Not every bead has been tacked down. My mom helped me fix that because she actually beads with 2 needles, and I do kind of like a modified 1 needle stitch that's similar to 2 needle, but yeah. But if you also have kids like I do, it's easier just to have 1 needle around because you don't want to lose, you know, the second needle. So that's also why it's, yeah, why we decided to do the 1 needle today. And so yeah, I'll pour out my beads. Neves has a little beading mat.
So you might find this in a beading store as well. It's called a beading mat. So essentially, when you pour your beads on here, it helps them not move around. You can use just a plate as well, just so they don't roll off the table. So that's another thing you want to do. So I'm just pouring out just a little bit onto the beading mat.
And I'm just using the lids of other beading containers. I find that just easier for me to do. And I forgot my mat. So. Colors, yeah, I've got 3 colors, and like, yeah, you could do more colors if you wanted. Like I have this one here with many colors, and yeah, so I mean, it all depends on the type of pattern you want to do. Some of them you could do with just 2 colors.
Yeah, like the diamond shape that I'm going to be doing, you can just do 2 colors, one for the outline and then one for filling in.
Oh, and someone just asked if you can use fishing line, and you can actually use fishing line, but it is clear, and because it's spooled and like depending on the weight of it, it might like coil easy. So when you're putting your needle down and threading in beads, as you're pulling the like fishing line, say if you're going to use, and you pulled it down, it may actually start to coil and have a knot either on the top or when you're coming back up again. So if you do have a fishing line that you can get relatively straight, that would be good. But if it's straight off the spool, then yeah, there is danger to actually having it knot up, and that would be great. So I hope that answers anybody that has fishing line. Yeah, and so the next step, we add 2 beads.
So I'll do a little close up here for Instagram. So when you're picking up the beads on the beading mat, you'll just go putting the needle through the hole, and then I like to just kind of hold it on the needle, or you can just keep pulling it onto the thread off the needle. So I'm going to pick up, how many are you picking up?
Just 2.
Okay, we're going to pick up 2 beads. Okay, so I got it, and then so you can see them at the end from the start where it came up through the felt.
Yeah, and I have my 2 as well that I picked up with a needle, and so mine is at the top, and this next part is important, where you want to take your needle, push back on the thread line where the needles are, so you're pushed up flush against the 2 beads, and you see where the last bead is along the line right here, and you are going to pierce through just ahead of where that last bead is, and then once you pierce through, you can pull it all the way through. I have a comment coming in. So you pull it all the way through, and you've laid down 2 beads. And so that's the beginning of the outer edge. So Neve is doing that as well too.
So pushing
about
that,
the same color.
And yeah, you're putting the thread along the line of your outline. So just pushing it back and then just going right in front of that bead. Okay, and then just pull it through. It should look like that. And now your needle is underneath of your pattern.
Yeah, and so now your needle's back here, and which is why we call it flat stitch, because you're essentially just flat stitching the beads onto the template. And now the next part, I believe we're on step 9, and now I'm going on to 10, in case people have the instructions and they're following along.
So yes.
So this is another important part, because once you get this technique down, you can actually just go ahead and keep stitching down all the beads. So the next step is to come up from underneath, just from, and pierce just before where the last bead was placed.
So in between these two.
So you're in between the two beads that you just laid down.
Yeah.
And then you're going to pull up all the way through. And now your thread should be right in between where those two beads are.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step is to actually, that last bead you placed, you're going to take the needle, put it through that last bead.
Like that.
Yeah. Put it through the last bead
and
pull it all the way through. And then you pull tight, and the more you bead, the more you'll know the tension to have. And okay, and now we have that first stitch done. And so we'll be repeating this process. If you are on step 14, I believe. Step 13 is to add another bead. You can do 1 or 2. For time's sake, you could do 2.
Yeah, I'll do 2 onto my diamond piece.
Yeah,
maybe,
and
then
I'll do mine 1 by 1. So I'm only going to pick up 1 more bead. Then look at step 14, which it says to repeat what we've just done, where I will take the 1 bead I've done, push it up against the first 2 beads I laid down, pierce right ahead.
Okay, and I'm adding 2.
Yeah.
So doing similar to your first stitch. So kind of pushing back again, and then piercing down right in front of the new beads or 1 bead that you added. So you push through. Okay. Pull your thread through. So it should look like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull mine all the way through after I laid down 1. And so now I have 3 beads laid down. Neve will have 4 because she's adding 2 each time, and I'll do 1 just for 1 by 1. So I'm going to repeat again. So we're actually repeat this process, like coming up between the last two beads on the line.
So repeating that 1 step, going in between the newest bead and the other bead right there. So for mine, between the 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, and if you're doing 1 by 1, it's just between the last bead laid and the second last. Yeah, so it's essentially laying down, hand stitching, which is why beadwork can take a long time. There's a lot of effort put in, and I mean even this belt in front, because every bead was laid down hand by hand. It was close to a year off and on. So yeah, so I mean when you do see beadwork and people doing like intricate things, there's a lot of work that goes into things, and there are a lot of beadwork artists out there that do great work as well. And yeah, so I have 4 beads laid. Leaves.
I'm picking up another 2, and this will finish my one line here. So it will fit 6 beads. So I picked up 2 again. So doing that process of pulling on your thread, pushing your beads back, and then piercing through the felt right in front of the last bead. And then pulling through. Be like that. So I finished one line on this diamond template.
Yeah, and I'm just at the top of the feather about to turn. So I have 6 beads. So if you have size 10 beads, it'll be 6 beads at the top. And then when you come around the corner though, they might not be an exact like jagged line, which is fine. Because when I'm coming up through in between the last 2 beads on that top line, I'm pulling through and going through that next bead on the end, it will actually, you know, kind of curl down a little bit, but yeah, it'll keep it, it'll still keep it even and along the lines. Yeah, and it'll still keep it even and along the lines here. So I'm going to be continuing on down this way. So there's 6 beads up here. So if you have size 10 beads, like I said, you'll have 6 beads along the top. Yeah, so if anyone was doing that, and like when I say size 10 beads, I mean 10 beads fit per inch. And we just had a question, says, do you have injuries with your thumbs or hands?
You can use thimbles, or if you have some like scrap leather, you can make a hide thimble as well. I personally don't like to use it just because I feel like it gets in the way with me, so I often stab myself with the needle, so that's not quite safe. But I would use a thimble for, especially with the beginner, because you can stab yourself quite a bit. And yeah, and sometimes I'll go through my skin on my fingers, just like going really into the design. But yeah, that's something that happened. And I made a little mistake just because I went accidentally underneath the paper. So I'll show you how to like go back a step. So essentially I'm going back underneath, and I'm going to that last thread line that I just did. And I'm just using my needle to pull up that thread. So I'm pulling that out. And then, so I'm just re-threading my needle now. And then just repeating the last step that I just messed up.
Okay, and someone, we just had a thing back to the injuries, because I was wondering if it was from repetitive use. And I mean, what would need repeated with injuring or having more like raw fingers and calluses, that can happen if you do it a lot. But also, just because there is, like, if you can get injured or like, well, strain your hands. I noticed when I was pregnant with my last son, I thought I had an injury that was related to just my pregnancy, just because my hands were sore and that. They're like, well, what are you doing? I was like, well, I'm typing and I'm beading a lot. And then turns out it was beading a lot. So I had to, take a little break because I can get strained. And, if you have arthritis, like we do have RA in our family too. So, I try to bead as much as I can, because you never know when you won't be able, to use your hands again. And also, you can also strain your eyes sometimes. So I would say if you get a beading lamp or a magnifying glass, because I do know some people, they've had to stop a little bit. And even like our Cookham stopped, her vision wasn't as great towards later in her life too. But even then, like if there are aids to help you, or just to go at your pace when you are beading. I know today we're trying to go a bit faster just because it is 1 hour, but if you, go at your own pace, take your time and do things. You can, bead for a long time, pick up a project, put things down, do more things, and it'll be, I don't really injure myself like where I can't
continue working, like just through beading. There are times when like my hands like cramp up and everything, so that's when I know I need to take a break. So that's just another thing, just to make sure that your fingers are like quite, that you're not doing it like to cramp your fingers, and to be mindful of that.
Okay, and I have another question. Oh, and then so just it's more like the hands and the fingers. The thumbs not too much. No. We do have. Where do you get your beads, or how do you determine the quality of the bead? And you. Let me go ahead.
Sure.
Well, I mean, we've been collecting beads for a while.
For years and years, and we use different kinds of beads as well. Like we're using seed beads right now. Often we'll use delicas. Is there any delicas on? So yeah, these are delicas right here. So you can see the difference. The seed bead is more round, and then the delicas here they're more kind of flat. But these are size 11 delica beads. And there's also like cut glass, which this one has a lot of cut glass in it. So they're kind of more, they're not more uniform as the seed bead is normally. So it's kind of, you have to be mindful of the beads you pick up for any cut glass projects. But we get beads from different places like this in the city.
Yeah, and like she
or
said,
online.
Size 11 delica beads, which means they're actually smaller than these size 10. Because like I was saying earlier, like size 10, because there's 10 beads fit per inch. So size 11 delicas mean 11 beads fit per inch. And actually, these red beads here, I think they're size 15. So 15 of them fit per inch, so that's quite small. And they use a different size needle. And these ones are from a market in LA, the fashion district. So yeah, whenever we travel, we actually try to locate any type of beading or different like fashion districts where they may have different things. Locally there's different places you can go. There's Bessie's Beads or Bessie Supplies.
Yeah, and that's on Arlington Redwood. And there's also Poco Inspired, I know, is in Winnipeg, as well as there's the Winnipeg Trading Post. And most of these beading stores as well, they'll have all the like threads and needles that you'll need as well. So they'll have all the supplies you need. And this is just an example of the container that usually the delicas come in. So it's a smaller container rather than like the hank you'll see. Yeah. Oh, that's open. Okay, sorry, we just spilled some beads. Yeah. Okay, and then is there another question? Yeah.
Oh, and with the seed beads too, there's different finishes. So if you can see if the beads you're getting are actually glass beads, they'll last longer. And I mean, some of this metallic finishes, some of them may actually come off depending on what bead you use. Some people actually put clear nail polish on so they last longer too. But there are certain colors, I would say. You have to be mindful if you buy purple beads, because purple beads are really difficult because most of them are actually dyed and they'll actually turn back to white. So
especially in like sunlight. So if you're like, she had something hanging off of her in our car mirror and all the purple beads just faded. Yeah. Back to white. So, and we didn't varnish those as, now we're starting to varnish everything so that the color can be preserved. Yeah, so I'll show you an example of, so these are matte seed beads. Normally, you'll find opaque ones, which will be like these black ones. So there's a bit of a sheen on them, and these are the opaque ones. So these are the opaque ones, so they have a bit of a sheen on them, so you can see on some of the examples down here, and then the matte ones are, they're matte. And then, yeah, like saying the metallic ones, yeah, you have to be mindful of the of it fading if it does. There's also some transparent ones as well. So these ones are kind of more clear in the center. So you might see the thread when you're using anything transparent. Yeah, and then
so I'm still doing one bead at a time. So I'm coming through this last bead, pulling through, and getting towards the end of that, adding one more, picking it up, having it go down, so people see, and then push it against the last bead, locate just before or just after where the last bead was placed, pierce on the line, pull it all the way through, and then it's good to also have tension here too, just so it's not loose. So every bead I've placed is staying in place right now. And yeah, so now I'm coming in between the last two beads on the line.
And we have
another
another
question. Yeah.
So one of the questions is, what is the history behind this craft? So this is from Instagram. I mean, for beadwork in general, there's so many different stories depending on the nation, and yeah, different nations across Canada will have different meanings behind their beadwork. I know that like a lot of our family on our mom's side, they would have a bunch of like moccasins and like beadwork on there, as well as jackets. So there's an example of a jacket with beadwork that our cook Sarah Jane Monias made over 30 years ago, and yeah, you can see all the beadwork that she did onto the jacket itself.
Yeah. So they're used as like embellishments and like decorative styles, and even before there were beads around, like there were more like natural pieces like quills and different things that were used before there were beads, but yeah, like they are embellishments to things that we had to survive, which were the jackets or gauntlet mitts. This was actually from a gauntlet mitt. My couple made this. We couldn't locate the other piece because we were going to save them, and what I ended up doing was cutting out the piece of the gauntlet mitt, and these are actually seed beads, and they haven't faded. This is about 30 years old also.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we took that, and there's just new ways to repurpose and honor different designs we've done. That's actually the design in the back as well too. So
and a lot of times, like say a lot of like floral works will be designs from specific families as well. So like they're so like we do a lot of florals because of our cookums and aunties and everything up north. So that's what we bead as well.
Yeah, and some of the designs are actually not. They were also painted like on Tikanagan, so they weren't always beaded. Yeah, so they are, and
or embroidered, like so they would sew onto some leather hide as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm still continuing on. And if you have a feather, let's count here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 14 beads will fit across. So it's 6 beads for the short line and 14 across, just in case you needed to keep going. Oh, are you moving along?
A little bit.
Okay. Okay. Pick up the pace here, but it's good to have the questions and people tuning in, knowing that they're watching and joining us.
It's just kind of repeating your process, just trying to finish the design, and then you'll learn how to, make multiple like kind of shapes or what have you. And so like once you finish the outline, you'll start filling in the center part. So similar to this one, for this design, the lines are going straight down. So normally I would start from. You can start from just going one side and then keep going until you reach the end. That would probably be your best bet, just so you're not just starting in the middle and then going like kind of on each side, because then your beads might just move slightly. So yeah, start on one side and then going to the other side for this diamond shape.
And we have another question. Well, there's one comment. It says, "Yep, still watching, lots of engagement." Hey, thanks. And we also have another question coming in. It says, "How do you do more circular designs like flowers?" So that's flowers can be a bit more advanced depending on how you think they would end up looking. Because I know there are different ways to do them. Like, you do start with a center, lay down a bead, but if you're a beginner, it's actually better to get either a button or like a circular crystal or something
on here is
round.
a shell bead that I beaded around. Some people also just do a beaded center for flowers. So what they'll do is essentially you'll be starting from the center of it. I can show quickly.
Yeah, we will do that.
I'll do it quickly, but you'll start from the center one. Oh yeah, so this is like the center beads, but you're doing a rosette kind of design. So you're starting with one bead and then you're wrapping. Essentially, you can either, normally when I do the like floral work like this, I'll do all the round beads or the 6 or 7 beads at once, and then I'll pin down each bead just by going over top of the thread. So I can show that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Neve can do that quick because we had a question if people want to do that. And I'm still going along here. So I'll let Neve take over with the rosette in a minute. And I'm still doing my lines here. I'm trying to go really quickly.
And we can show like some edging techniques
Yeah, we'll
near
do it
the
too.
end, just so people have the knowledge so they can finish their projects. So I'm just doing like the beginning steps of just threading my needle and just knotting it again. So
Neve's doing that. And I'm still adding bead by bead. I might do 2. Okay, I'm going to do 2 to speed up a bit.
okay, and then so for the rosette, if you have a template, it might be better, but I'm just working off of just showing you quickly. So you're just going underneath again, like the same technique, and then you're pulling it forward. Then you're picking up one bead. I'll do this dusty rose color, picking up one bead, and then you're doing the same thing, pushing it back with your needle, and then piercing through down here. So you'll have a little lone bead here. And normally I like to do is just kind of go right next to the bead, underneath, and then just pull again. And this is where I will pick up 6 or 7 beads, depending how they fit around the your single bead in the center.
And I'm still doing the feather here. But
Here, I'll do 6.
I'm still doing this rosette demo with the request, in case anyone tuning in and wondering what's going on.
So you're kind of just wrapping it around that single bead. Let's see. So see, I probably want to pick 7 beads instead of 6. So I'm going to pick up another bead. There we go. Okay. Then wrapping around that single bead. And what you want to do is where you first started, where all the beads came out of, you want to go through that first bead. So just going through like that, and then just pull through. And then making sure that you keep the beads and thread all around the single bead, so like that. And then so you'll just go underneath again. Just holding onto your beads. And then from here, you're gonna wanna tack down in between each of these. So what I will do is just go around in a circle. So I just go right outside between these 2 beads. And then I go over top closer to the center bead. And, oh, I stabbed myself. Okay, and yeah, you just pull through. So you keep doing that around that circle. So that's how you start doing rosette and circle designs.
Yeah, and now we're back to the lines again.
Yeah, okay. Switch out.
I hope that helps if anyone wants to do that. Which is why, if you're a beginner like that, and sometimes people just do, you know, little flowers if they, you know, have like little...
here is like little flowers around
Yeah.
here. So just like kind of doing it one color of a center bead and then just writing or doing a different color around that bead.
Yeah, and I'm still continuing on here. I'm now adding 2 beads to speed up a little bit. But this also means, yeah, not every bead will be tacked down, but you can also go back again and go over each portion to make sure it is if you really want it tight. So here, I'm here again. I'll go back to adding. Yeah, so let's say if you're adding 2 beads. Yeah, so 2 or 1. It's 2 beads here. Pushing it up against the last beads. So this will be the last 2 in this row. And I'll push right, I'll pierce right up against just after where the last bead is. So it looks like this from the side, just demonstration. And then pulling all the way through. And then, yeah, tack down again. And now I'm going to come up through, as we were showing earlier, in between these last 2 beads here. And pull it up. And now I'm going to go through that very last bead, and I'm coming around a corner. So it's going to be 6 more beads here, and this outline will be done. Normally it should take about, 10-15 minutes per side. So you'll notice you do need a lot of patience if you are learning this. So, I mean, if you have any good movies or series to watch, it's really productive to have things lined up to go, because you can, watch some of your favorite movies you've seen before, and if you're sitting around a beading circle with some friends, this is actually really fun to do, and it's what I used to do in law school a lot too, actually, and I still do now, and hang out with my sister when she does stuff. So
so sometimes we'll bead together and just kind of sitting around and then seeing, and also it gives you a chance of seeing what other people are working on as well. Just it's more casual, just a little beading circle. Yeah.
And so I mean, if anyone wanted to join us after on Instagram or Facebook us through Monias Beads, and they have questions or things after today, it would be free to do that as well too. We'll set on a little table, make it more like a Zoom if you wanted, or Google Meet or whatever else is out there. To do
video.
Video, so we can see the engagement from the other side too. But at least we've had some questions today. And so adding a couple more beads, piercing just ahead, pulling all the way through. And I know we started beading more often than after our cousin passed away, but it's been good to actually look at her, even when I cut this piece off of the gauntlet and put it back on, when I actually, saw the underside and saw how she stitched. And, every bead was, tacked down. That's when I, started to make sure, I wanted to, bead like her like that. And my mom also told me, you should be doing that. So make sure everything's there, you don't want the beads to move. They need to stay in their place. So, so when it's flat stitch, it's nice. And, just the feeling of, a lot of beads together that actually stays in one spot. It's a really nice feeling. So, and my son and my husband actually use this one here, the sweetgrass around it. And their bear clan. So, and then just the fire fade. It's called fire fade design. So I did this for them, but so my son will pet this because he really loves it. And so it's nice when you can also make pieces for family. And I mean, when we do, sell some pieces on Monias Beads, and we have, some supporters and regulars, it seems locally.
We make a lot of, for what we sell is normally earrings or keychains or pendants, normally for the smaller size. But we have done some larger pieces or custom pieces for some people. It just depends on our schedule, because this isn't our our full-time job or anything. So this is kind of something we've been doing on the side of, on top of other stuff that we do.
Yeah, and like, I mean, recently in May, I did a beaded graduation cap, and the outside is actually called whip stitch, so it's me coming around on the edging, but there's actual name that was on top that was actually flat stitched down, so every bead in size 15, so like this big, was actually, you know, flat stitched down. So like, yeah, so like, I mean, when different things come up, so I know there's a lot more people doing the beaded graduation caps, so I mean, if you know, if you do have a grad in your family, and you wanted to bead something mounted on top of, you know, their cap, or even the tassel when it hangs, or if you do the diamond and, you know, want the flag, like if you're not indigenous and you have like a flag of like your country or something that means something to you, like you could have it by the tassel as well too. So yeah, so I mean, there's different things to, you know, do with this once you start beading. And I am actually on the top part here. I might, I'm gonna have to demonstrate the edging. I'll do, which part will be the edging?
Yeah.
7:59.
So there's two different edgings. I get you two different edgings you're showing.
So in the instructions we have, is it peacock? Peacock? Lace edging?
Peacock, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what these are lined with. So it kind of looks like a lace, a lace detail around it. The other kind of edging is what she mentioned before, which is the whip stitch. So you're kind of, so like this is a whip stitch. And so how we do this is we would put another piece of felt between the hide and your flatwork beadwork. And then you'll wrap, you'll start wrapping around, piercing through each piece. So this one, the whip stitch takes longer, but yeah, you can have it looking like this.
I'm just going to cut a piece of the stabilizer here, just to show the edging. But before you do the edging, just to demonstrate, because we're running out of time, I'm just cutting thread here. You would take backing material, so I'm just going to use felt and not use the animal hide that I have here. So this is deer hide that I will be putting this on here, but I'll use felt and do here. So what you would do, like, let's pretend you're done. Take, you know, the beaded piece here. Take tacky glue. If it'll come out, and like you can get tacky glue anywhere, like any big box
any craft
stores or
store.
like craft stores and that. And yeah, so you just put like a small layer, put it together like that. And let's pretend it's in a diamond shape. So you want to make sure this part's cut off. So I'll just pretend it's in diamond shape. Put like that. Okay, so for diamond shape, get this one to the side. Have the thread here knotted, and you're gonna pick, to do the picot or the lace edging, it's called sometimes too. Doing this, I'll do it in black so it's more visible. Okay, and so what you will do, so let's pretend this is the front here. You will come up through the back, from the backing material, pierce through, and you'll have beads along the edge here. You can try to get as close as possible. It won't be exactly there, which is fine. You can leave some space, but you'll come up through underneath, pull all the way through, and in the instructions towards the end, it's like 34 or 35. You will add 3 beads at the beginning. 2, 3. So there's 3 beads. Push them all down. So now I have this part here. And what you're going to do now is kind of locate where, so there's one bead would line here. Now kind of estimate where the next bead may lie down if there was one bead next to it. So about like 1/2 centimeter right here. You're going to pierce through right beside, pull all the way through, and now you'll see the 3 beads will be on one side here. Push them back up against one another here, here, back up. And then you're going to come from the underside, which is the red side here, go through that last bead from the underside and pull all the way through the top. And that will create this little lace peacock edging. And now to continue on, like you only do 3 beads on the first group, and then you're going to add 2 for each time. So I'm adding 2 more beads here, and then I'm doing another 1/2 centimeter, guessing where the next bead would lay down next to it. So another 1/2 centimeter right here. Pierce through the top material. Imagine there's beads there. Pull through. Push it back up. Pull through. And so there's going to be the bead right here. There's the last bead here. Go through underneath from the back side and you pull. So now you'll have 2 beads sticking up here, and you'll continue that on, and then they'll start to look like this towards the edging here. So I'll do a couple more. I hope people are still around. Yeah, and so I'm gonna do another one, so another like 1/2 centimeter or 3/8 centimeter, whatever it is. Pierce through the top, pull through, push that last bead up closer to the very edge, come through it underneath to the back side. It looks like this. Pull all the way through, and now we got 3 in a row. Yeah, so you just keep adding 2, and then it's important to note when you come back around to the other side, you're only going to add 1 bead to connect. And then you tie, it off in the back, and then it will look, the edging will look like this in the end. So you got my little knots here. I haven't glued, or sometimes people, a good thing to do is actually burn them with a lighter if you are very nimble with a with a lighter and won't burn things. So you can do that, or cut it very close and add some glue to if you want. So yeah, I can get it. And you're doing.
Do you want me to show a whip stitch quickly? Sometimes 58. 2 minutes. Okay.
I just want to do it quick. We have to do the.
I'll just show a whip stitch quickly. Just for the just a piece I have here. So like what I said is having the flat stitch and then a piece of felt, and I had the hide here. So essentially, you're prepping your needle similarly. Same way. This is where you'll probably need your pliers if you're going through felt as well, or sorry, animal hide. So what I like to do is with the knot is to go kind of beside the bead here, and then just pulling through, just so my one knot is just kind of hidden. Oh, there's a knot in here. 1 second. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we can.
Okay. Well,
we'll have some stuff on our Instagram.
Like we can have
a little video,
tutorials of these and videos on our Instagram, because we are beading more often these days.
Yeah.
Like I said, like, this is becoming more of how we sustain ourselves a bit more, and so there's, and then coming up next week, there's
I don't have it on here.
doing a freezing of poppy joy pom-poms, doing a
Pom-pom keychain?
a pom-pom door hanger, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, pom-pom door hanger. And yeah, so she's on Instagram, also on Facebook, and what? Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so thank you for everybody joining us. We're going to have some of the things at Miigwech for having us here, tuning in. And yeah, we'll have more tutorials, questions.
Okay.
I have to introduce you here. Oh my god.
You did awesome. Great
Okay.
job.